Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And we are going to have a panel on virtual communication today. And as you can see, the panel is also virtual, which is kind of fitting. So let me introduce the panelists today. So it is Svetlana Katok from Penn State University, Lorenzo Diaz from the Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro, Bryna from Northwestern University, and Matheus from CNRS École Polytechnique. And so we have some live attendees in the webinar, and attendees are welcome to communicate in chat, ask questions in chat, or there is also this Q&A button which you can use. If you would like to ask a question in person, you can actually raise your hand. So there is also a button to raise your hand, and we will allow you to turn your microphone on. So the plan is to structure kind of more or less roughly into two halves. So in the first half, we'll try to discuss how virtual communication was going. So it's been over a year, right? Probably starting March 2020, I guess, no, maybe April. And in the second half, we'll try to focus a little bit on kind of probably more speculative aspects of what the future could bring. And Jana, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you have said
okay.
all I wanted to say.
Okay, very good. So maybe let's just begin in order, and maybe we can just talk about what are the kind of interesting observations about this virtual mode you can have, and especially maybe let's focus on kind of dynamics as you know, I guess all of us are in dynamics here. So how was the dynamics of this virtual communication? Definitely, less enthusiasm, over the time, but what else is there? So maybe let's just go in alphabetical order. Lorenzo, do you want to start?
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm very happy to stay here with you. I would like to, I wrote some notes. Now, let me share with you. Well, I would like to start with my experience during the pandemic organizing conference. Well, I was very lucky because just in the beginning, in March 20, I was organizing a conference in Brazil for the 80th birthday of the Palace. And this was more or less when coronavirus started in Brazil. It was a very stressing week because we don't know how to proceed. We canceled the conference. But as a consequence, many people canceled the participation. Well, I had the opportunity of having Zoom provided by my university. And then I invite the people that canceled the participation in the conference to give online talks in this Resistencia Dinamica seminar. And then at the beginning was, the first talk was by Stefano Luzzato in the beginning of April. I guess that 120 people was a huge number of people participated. And I think that one thing that for me was very important is that we have a kind of sense of community, because more or less the people that attend to this seminar was mostly the people that participate in the Beyond Uniform Hyperbolicity conference. That is every 4 years or something like this. And then I think that we have a very important sense of community. And then I think that this is very important when you are trying to organize a seminar. And well, at the end of June, I decided to stop the organization because there are many possibilities, and I was tired. And well, I think that also as the number of offers in other places increased, the number of participants decreased, and then at some moment. But parallelly, I also this was a quite general, Resistencia Dinámica was a quite general seminar. But then talking with my colleagues, we note that especially for young people in the current circumstances, there are very few opportunities because, you know, you are organizing a seminar, you can invite the big shots, then you are not inviting the students to give seminars. And then with other people in Brazil, we are organizing a series of seminars called First Iteration in Dynamics. That is more or less 2-month seminars, only dedicated to, well, people that postdoc, PhD students, and we organize this seminar with a very clear focus to give some space for the young people. And another thing that I found very important is that we cannot forget that we need to keep the local environment. I think that when you're organizing seminars online, you are tempted to invite people from abroad and forget the people that is just in the corner. And then we have this working seminar that is 40 plus 40 going to infinity. That is more or less, we copy the idea of the Jocose Eliasson seminar in Paris, and we have 2 parts. The first part is for everybody, and the second is much more concentrated.
So what does 40 plus 40 mean?
40 means 40 minutes is the model in Paris in the seminar of Jocose and Eliasson. You have a 40 minutes where you present the general state of art of a problem, and in the second part, you essentially go to the proofs, the heart. Mm-hmm. And I think that is very important to keep the 3 levels. We cannot forget the 3 levels when organizing or trying to keep our scientific activities. Well, I think that there are several points which for me are very important. That is, when you're organizing a seminar, is, well, the sense that you are belonging to some community, that in the case of Resistencia Dinámica, for me was very important. Of course, you need to keep some communication with the participant. I think that is very difficult to have some small talk in the beginning and a small talk at the concluding of the seminar. But I think that the young people don't worry about this. I think that this is a problem for the elder people. I think that the young people don't worry with this small talk. Maybe I am wrong. But, you know, I think that for Resistencia Dinámica is very important, that because I think that more or less most of the people that attend the seminar, we were friends and meet several times. And we always have discussion at the end of the seminar. We discuss about COVID in China, COVID in Poland, COVID in many places, or other things. Well, I think that the hard part is to keep the interaction between the speaker and the participants. I think that we need to encourage the participation. I like very much the type of conference that organized Andrey and Rafael Potri, Hyperbolic Days. That is a very interesting format. Probably we will discuss this. And then it's important to have a chairperson that is encouraging the people to participate and to make questions. I was very lucky because in Resistencia Dinámica, in some cases we have 40 minutes of questions after the talk. This is extremely rare when you're organizing an in-person seminar, discussion of about more than 40 minutes. I don't know what is the secret of that, but well, I think that one of the issues that Andrey and Jana asked us is what are the challenges when running a seminar? I think that the first thing is that you need to have very clear why you are organizing the seminar, for whom, what is the people that you want to interact, and for what. The other question about how, where, and when, this is, I think that for online seminar are minor questions. I think that once you have answered these 4 questions, you need to fix and keep a focus. I think I insist you have many temptations to try to invite the very big shots, but I think that again, you need to pay attention to the mathematicians which are in your corridor. I think that it's very important to select the speaker to keep the community connected. I think that you're organizing a seminar, you try to have interaction with Brazilian university. You need to invite people from that universities. That is the example. Of course, we need to be diverse. Diversity is very important in many aspects. And again, I guess that COVID times are especially hard for young mathematicians. I think that for them it's more harder than for the elder mathematicians. And I think that we need also to have a space for these young mathematicians. Well, I think that we need to keep the difficulties of what means online. I think that in my case, I have difficulties to understand what is the special thing of online. But I think that one way to create some interaction, I remember that in Resistencia Dinámica, we always open the session with announcements, another conference, seminar, and this kind of things that keep the people connected. I think that when we are organizing this sort of seminar, we have two dilemmas. The first is the question of safety. You know, you are worried that some people will invade your seminar. I think that, well, that is a risk. We need to be open. Well, I think that again, it's a very difficult question that we are always trying to mimic for the online events, the same organization that the in-person events. And I think that this is a very difficult task. I have no many ideas. Well, I think that the dangers we need to preserve our local environment with the people which are around us, to promote young people. Well, I think that maybe recording every activity is not that very good idea, because if the people prefer to attend the records, then they are not participating in the seminar. And a seminar is not only the record of a recording of a seminar, but the interaction with the participant. And finally, there is this question about hybridity. Probably Carlos Matheus can tell much more things. I participate in several hybrid events, and I was not in person, I was online, and I didn't like the experience. But maybe we can try some kind of hybridity. That is, well, maybe we may have different groups with meet in person, then you have some interaction, local interaction, and all these people are connected by Zoom in a big scale. I don't know, but my imagination is very poor, and maybe I will learn something. Well, I will stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I don't think anyone, so this is your last idea of several in-person groups. I'm not aware of any single instance of such.
Actually, this kind of things happens. For instance, there is a tradition, not in dynamical systems, but in algebraic geometry and number theory. There is a kind of online seminar between Paris, Japan, and the USA. Mm-hmm. And they meet like Lorenzo was suggesting. They have, so it's a kind of semi-local online, I would say. They have local participants in the same room in each mm-hmm. country, and they are meeting together by Zoom. So mm-hmm. in this way, everybody tries to participate, and it's not only 3 persons which are talking all the time. So it's better than just online.
I think that in the next Brazilian School of Dynamical Systems, that will be occurring in the last week of October, I think that there is Barbara Shapira and a group of mathematicians from France want to join the Brazilian mathematicians, and then I think that they are organizing. They will have, you know, the French people will be in, I don't know, it's in Rennes or where, but you know, this will be a kind of hybrid event. All the part of the Brazilian will be online, but I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Svetlana,
some people are talking in the chat, so I would like to read their messages. So if you want to comment on them, Steve Hurler has said that there are all good points on the slide by Lorenzo. Burago said this week Boris Buch delivered a Zoom talk with an absolute illusion of physical presence, Blackboard style. He sent me all details about the equipment he used. I am ordering this today. For the seminar, I managed to invite plenty of great people who otherwise would unlikely come. I see only advantages. The same as with teaching, though I think office hours and exams better be old-fashioned way. As for collaboration, my personal experience is that face-to-face work is much more productive for a number of reasons. If there is interest, I would elaborate on this. This is what Dmitry Urago said. And also someone raised their hands. So I don't know who, but that's it.
Okay, maybe let's leave these in-person questions towards the end. Svetlana, do you want to take over here?
So we're talking about last year teaching?
Yes.
Okay, well, so last year the teaching was totally over Zoom at Penn State. And we also had seminars and our traditional workshop also via Zoom. So what can I say? I think seminars were more, we send the invitation, the information about the seminars and workshop over a large dynamical systems list, which has about maybe 300 people. And of course, the attendance, the formal attendance was much more. So for example, we usually have about 60 people in the workshop. Last year, we had more than 150. But it doesn't mean that everybody was listening all the talks. And so this is the problem, in my view, with Zoom talks. So it looks like lots of people there, but you never know how many actually are paying attention. You cannot say for sure if people are sitting in the audience in the room that they all are paying attention, but at least there is a more chance that you know that. Anyway, okay, so the positives, as I see, is that you can invite people from all over the world, and that's of course very well, especially when the travel is limited. This is very, very good. But negative, it's not socializing. So I was not able, in fact, I was not at any event, a Zoom event, which actually provided reasonable socializing. This break rooms with a couple of people talking, it's not the same as just, seeing someone at coffee break and talking personally to this person. And sometimes this is the beginning of collaboration. You never know. You talk with someone and it just starts. I don't think it's possible to do in this Zoom break rooms. So we're not talking about the transition yet.
Well, it's, I guess, up to you, I guess.
Well, frankly, when I read your questions and topics, one of them I said that certainly large international conferences are not going to happen in the foreseeable future. I disagree with that. Well, AMS meeting, big joint mathematical meetings in January of 2022 is going to be in person, as far as I understand.
But it's not an international meeting, right? It's just...
Well, it's not an international meeting. What about the Congress in St. Petersburg? It's also going to be in person. Now, Oberwolfach, I looked at Oberwolfach. All meetings in 2021 are in hybrid. But it looks like in 22, they all will be in person because it doesn't say that they're going to be hybrid. Mm-hmm. So I disagree that we should adjust to this mode. I think we should help people to move back to the normal mode.
Okay.
So, well, our meeting at Penn State is going to be in person at the end of October. And so we will see how that goes. So, well, safety, we will follow Penn State guidelines. In fact, we wouldn't be able even to organize this big meeting if Penn State doesn't allow us. But so the only mandate is masking inside the buildings. But it's also when people eat or drink coffee, coffee breaks are allowed. And so we'll see how it goes. So we are going to have a banquet. We're going to have coffee breaks as usual. So I think our seminars are also in person. And in fact, we tried to when we started Zooming also seminars, and then the attendance declined. So we're not recording, we're not Zooming the seminars right now. So this is what's going on at Penn State.
Okay, thank you. Bryna, do you want to take over?
Yeah. So I have a different take on things. I think online meetings are here to stay in some format, and there will be a lot more hybrid. And so I think short meetings will essentially be only online for funding reasons, things that used to exist as 1 day or 2 day meetings. And longer meetings, I think, will gradually come back, but I think it will be in a different format. That's just my personal opinion from observations and seeing what's going on in various organizations I work with. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I, along with, it started with 2 other people and gradually grew to a group of 5 organizers altogether, ran monthly online meetings. We ran 12 of them, and then we ran a summer school. They were run with a very different format because I think online meetings do not work if one just copies the in-person format exactly for the reasons that both Lorenzo and Svetlana enunciated. People don't pay attention for long talks. They lose their concentration. It's very difficult to sit in front of Zoom for 6 hours, 8 hours. They miss those coffee breaks and moments to just start a collaboration independently. So what we tried to do is invent a new way to do this, of creating some of those in-person interactions that we all were missing. And I'll explain exactly what we did in a moment, but the main goal of this, from my perspective, and I believe my co-organizers, was that the people who are being most harmed by this move to online and lack of in-person are the junior participants, the students and the postdocs who are not making those connections that can be career changing for them. I know some of my early collaborations happened from in-person conferences, and I never would have met the people if it were the current system. So what we did is we tried to create opportunities, not just for the young people to speak, but for them to interact with more senior people. So what did we do? Well, first of all, my own, you can call this my lack of ability to pay attention online for long times, but I cannot follow a 50-minute talk online and enjoy it thoroughly. So we changed the format. Our talks were 15 minutes, no longer. Each talk was, sometimes they were 20, but each talk was followed by a 10-minute question period. So it was extended time for questions. We ran 2 or 3 talks in an hour, and then we had a break. And that break involved randomized breakout rooms. So we always started every meeting with randomized breakout rooms, and we ended every meeting with had another version of that in the middle. And what we did then is really send people into random rooms, putting 4 to 6 participants in a room, hoping that this way junior people would meet senior people. And at first people balked and said, I'm not going to do that. But everybody who tried it in the end said it was an amazing opportunity. And several collaborations that I know of resulted from these. Some of them are ongoing, people who met because they were in a room with, you see at most 6 people on the screen. We told them to introduce themselves, what they work on, and then they started talking. So that was the random part, just to make new people and new connections. And then the talks, the way they worked is we would run 3 talks in an hour, having short question periods, and then an extended 3 breakout rooms, 1 for each speaker in each time. And the participants could choose to go to which room they wanted and ask questions for another extended equivalent length of a talk. And some of these conversations were extremely lively, as Lorenzo described, longer time for questions because they were not in the full group with everybody. There was no recording there, which I think is a key idea to give people the freedom to ask questions. And they was just people who were interested in that particular talk. And sometimes people were conflicted. They wanted to go to more than one, but then you just made an appointment to talk to the speaker otherwise. So these meetings started with a mailing list of 30 people from a conference, the in-person conference that was canceled, and ended up with a mailing list of, I don't know, somewhere about 180 to 200 people, and regular attendees were between 60 and 150, depending on the date and the series of talks. And in the end, we followed it up with a summer school that followed this format, involving numerous randomized breakout rooms for young people to meet, problem sessions online with actual TAs in the rooms working with students, 2 lectures, and then associated short lectures along the themes of these. I'm going to put in the chat a link because most of it was all recorded, not so expertly sometimes. So many of them are cut off because we were doing the recording. But it's a documentation of all of the 12 meetings, and the 13th one is the summer school that happened. Now, as Lorenzo said in his slides, there was fatigue at the end, and we took a step back from organizing this because people were getting tired and people were beginning to return to in-person. But I think there is a reason to return and have such regular experiences. I still receive emails from people who said that it was their lifeline to research communities during the major part of the pandemic. And so I think there are opportunities to continue this, but I would stress not in the format of a regular meeting. These are different. I think it can be an afternoon meeting rather than a full day so that you don't get zoomed out. And short periods there. And I think Doug Lind is maybe listening, and he was one of the people who was one of the co-organizers of this. And there were several others involved. They're all listed on the webpage that I linked to. So I'm happy to answer questions on how we ran it, but I think it was a very different than an in-person meeting. And that was why it was successful.
Thank you. So you mentioned that there are these breakout rooms, random breakout rooms. You've seen some collaborations originating from there, right? These are completely fresh collaborations. So these
fresh collaborations, people who had not met and met in the randomized breakout room. And several other things that happened is that people met, gave a talk, and then were in a randomized breakout with somebody who asked them about their talk. One person said that their research of problems they had been stuck on advanced. We also tried several other experimental things, which I think were quite successful. We had an online problem session, but many times in a problem session, people talk about a particular problem that's of interest to them and nobody else. What we did is the way our problem session worked was that each person who wanted to pose a problem, we selected them actually, had to find a different person to present the problem. And so they were there in the audience to answer questions, but they were not the presenter. And it meant that somebody else thought about and made the slides. And it was actually a very successful thing. And each senior person who presented a problem asked a junior person to do the presentation. And the junior people told me it was very useful to them to learn about the background and what this problem was. And finally, one thing which I neglected to mention is we always insisted that all speakers put the slides up in advance so that people did not have to say, oh, could you go back? They could always download them and look at them on their own. And this is a very helpful thing.
All right. So let's, Matheus, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I think many things that were already said by Lorenzo, Svetlana, and Bryna. Yeah, so I will quickly say what is my experience on online seminar. So basically, I was co-organizing this bistro seminar together with Simon Philip, Martin Muller, and Curtis McMullen. It's a seminar that grew up out of the cancellation of a traditional conference in Bonn in touch dynamics. And so basically everybody wanted to meet during the pandemics, and that's how it started. Yes, for me, it was a very exciting experience because, I mean, normally in-person seminars, they happen with very, very few persons in the audience, even if you have large amphitheaters for that. But with the bistro, it was nice to see, I mean, many friends from the US and Asia and Europe at the same time. But of course, one of the problems was trying to find a good time for everybody because of the different time zones. So this is always it was always a delicate problem. I mean, many persons were writing to the organizers, in particular to me, asking to shift a little bit to the beginning of the seminar, either because people, I don't know, in Switzerland or in England had problems, I don't know. So yeah, this is a difficult point. I don't know how to solve it. And of course, I mean, since there are many more participants, I mean, I was also looking at some number theory seminars where they had 500 participants. Well, as Svetlana was saying, maybe not all 500 persons listed were attending, I mean, paying attention, but still, it was very exciting. But of course, this had the drawback that people became shy, at least in the beginning of the seminar. So in the beginning, we had just 5 or 6 persons talking, asking questions, and so this was problematic for the seminar, I guess. Actually, we tried to solve this at some point using this tool called Gather Town, which is an online tool that you can enter with nicknames, and then you have a little avatar that you can move virtually in the board, and then you can meet with people if you have close avatars, and then starting a Zoom talking when they get close together. But I don't know how successful that was. I mean, this was something that I learned from Laborie. He introduced us to this Gather Town tool, but I don't think it was as successful as I was initially thinking about this problem that was already mentioned, that in the beginning, I mean, people usually tend to arrive for Zoom talks 2 minutes before the start, and then they leave as soon as the talk is over, basically. So there is an exponential decay of participation, which is kind of sad because people don't have this opportunity to meet, and that was already mentioned. I mean, especially junior people don't have this opportunity to meet and talk to more senior persons, or even other junior participants, and then start collaborations. But anyway, I think that the balance was positive. I mean, even though Zoom is tiring some, and there are these dilemmas that were mentioned by Lorenzo in his slides, that it's hard to solve. So one thing is that was mentioned by Bryna is that how long should the talks be? This is kind of tricky because if you give a short time, then at least I have the sensation that I'm getting just a list of statements. And I guess that's what people really want to, when they go to seminars and talks, is really to learn ideas. I mean, I think they should go for talks to get out at least with one idea of proof of something, rather than a list of statements. And but of course, if you make very long talks, I don't know, 2 hours, it's online, it's really tiring. So yeah, I don't know what is the good compromise. maybe the solution should be that this kind of online meetings should be just exceptional things other than the rule. So in particular, with my co-organizers, we are discussing precisely that. I mean, the Bistro seminar in particular was taking place every Monday for several months, and that in the end, people was getting tired, of course, and so we are now thinking that it should be something more like a colloquium, having 2 talks and maybe one by one senior people and one by junior people. And not so long, and just once every 2 months. But we are still discussing that. Yes, but I mean, another positive, just to end with another positive remark, is that I was noticing that the speakers which were willing to play the game of online talks were putting a lot of effort in giving very nice talks. So the preparation was very nice. I mean, they were really taking care of preparing very nice slides, and at least that was my experience. And so I think that the average online talk was better than the average in-person talk. I mean, of course, in in-person talks, you have a lot of room for improvising things, and maybe this, I mean, of course, this can add a lot of value to these in-person talks, but sometimes if you try to improvise, things can get bad, and so you lose a big chunk of the audience. And so this was one nice thing that I discovered with these online talks, that the speakers willing to play the game, they put a lot of effort in preparing very nice slides. Also, another thing that was mentioned by Lorenzo is that recordings are a dangerous thing, because I mean, on one thing, people get bad conscious because not everybody has the same time zone, so they don't. I mean, they can't participate in every session of the seminar, so you feel guilty that you should record for them. And actually, we did that with Bistro, so we were recording for 1 week and then deleting it so putting a link on Google Drive and giving the link to participants and then deleting after 1 week. But when we started doing that, the participation dropped significantly, as expected, more or less. So so I mean, I think the summary is that these online events are probably going to give us a very nice tool for diversity in mathematics, because by definition almost, it allows people from many countries and different time zones to meet and talk about math. So this is a great help for diversity in mathematics. But on the other hand, it's very tricky to solve these dilemmas, and definitely I don't have definite answers for that. So I think it's probably time to start speculating, since I don't have answers for the perfect online seminar.
Boris is asking, do you have any information on how much any recordings were actually viewed?
Yes, I know some. I have some indirect information, because I was getting emails from people who were complaining when the links were not correct because of some problem of copy and paste when sending the emails. So yes, we had a sizable chunk of the participants. So I mean, Bistro had, I mean, depending on the speaker, we had 80 participants, 100 participants, I don't know. I mean, perhaps more, perhaps a little bit less. And then when we started recording, these dropped basically by 50, I would say, 60. So, and I think that those are basically the persons who were, I mean, making a huge effort to try to see online because it was not recorded, but when it became recorded, they basically dropped the seminar, which is kind of pity. So yeah, so it was a sizable fraction, I would say more than 20%. Or seeing online, which is, I mean, seeing at home, so which is kind of bad for participation in online events.
Yeah, another thing I definitely feel, you know, I don't know if it's really true, but I think this virtual mode definitely really encourages specialization, like on all levels. Like I, for example, pretty much stopped going to any Zoom colloquia. I used to go to a lot to colloquia, but on the Zoom, it really becomes, I don't know, I cannot, it's really hard to take. And at the same time, within Dynamics, I think, you know, we see more online events, which are really more focused. Of course, you know, we used to have focused, very focused events in person, right? But I think it's even more very focused events now, like within a specific area in Dynamics, for example. Does anyone want to?
I have I mean, since I live in China, I'm concerned about this. I don't think that China will open borders anytime soon. I mean, they are formally open, but if you want to come back to the country, you have to face 21-day quarantine. So it's actually closed for us because we don't have so much holidays. So I haven't seen my family in 2 years. So less I will go out just to attend the conference. So this will severely affect the possibility of all people in China and also people in Australia who have the same situation to attend in-person conferences. And this affects diversity in some sense. That's all I want to say.
I have a comment to the comment by Jana. Well, I think when I heard Svetlana saying that, well, we are in the state returning to the normal life, I think that this is, well, you move to different countries, the situation is quite different. For instance, I think that in Brazil, the things are going slowly. Perhaps in the near future, we will be able to travel. But for instance, when the people go to Europe with the vaccines in Brazil, then you have problems to move in Europe because the companies ask you to have some tests that depends on the local service of health. This is quite complicated. And I think that, well, probably for the next year, the transition, well, I think that this transition may affect very negatively the countries in bad conditions, especially, you know, people working in undeveloped countries, because they will have much more difficult. I think that maybe in the beginning for people from these countries, the pandemics have some positive aspect that you can go to online conference. But I think that this good wave is changing because these people will have much more problems to travel. And I think that, of course, we have some ideal idea of the pre-COVID world, but I think that we learned many things and many positive things during the COVID, and then we need to learn how to adapt the Zoom or online possibilities to the everyday life. I think that having meetings every month or meetings following the Bryna process that I found really extremely interesting, inspiring. Maybe we need to continue trying this and to try to combine the two possibilities. But I think that for people going from South America, China, some part of Asia, the future may be quite difficult because the vaccines are different. I don't know. Thank you.
Should I read the comments on of the people who are attending, because we are almost arriving to an end? There are many comments.
Yeah, are there any questions there? Or no?
There are not only questions, there are interesting comments. Here, Marisa Cantarino is telling that online events may give us a kind of guilt, a fear of missing out, that did not happen at in-person events, because now we are under the illusion that we could take part in everything. Besides, participating online is not the same, at least as a PhD student, I rarely feel comfortable to interact, says Marisa Cantarino in the talk, so in the chat. Christina Cooperberg is also, do you want to read, Andrey?
Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay. There are many comments. Christina Cooperberg is telling, I feel that the idea of shorter talks is good, but I also like the longer 50-minute talk at a larger conference. I could log on 2 semi-plenary talks at the same time instead of picking just one, which is a common problem at large meetings. It is important that the long lectures are accessible to a larger audience, but informative.
So Anna, let me make a comment about shorter talks. To clarify, the way I view shorter talks online is that they're sort of like a movie trailer. They're an advertisement. And so I don't remember who had said it. It can sometimes be a list of just results. Maybe Carlos, you said this. So that is true, but one of the advantages of having, imitating the 40 plus 40, but in a shorter format, of having the 15 to 20 minute talk followed by a longer breakout session where you can be in a smaller group and just talk to the person and get some real details. Sometimes people even prepared more slides for that. So it was more of a second part of a talk. It's a very good hybrid solution, because I really think many people fail to be able to pay attention to online talks for as long as traditional talks when you're more engaged with the speaker. I also wanted to respond to the student who wrote, Marisa wrote, I agree that this is the biggest issue that we face, is that students and postdocs, depending exactly where they are in career, missing out on opportunities. And I think that's why we have to adapt our online to cater to that group rather than to established researchers. So yes, established researchers are missing many things, but it's not comparable to what the students and postdocs are missing. And that is the most important group that we have to help with this format.
All right, thank you. We still have some time. So maybe let me ask this question. Actually, Jim Fowler wrote to me yesterday and he put it in a little bit provocative way. Let me quote from Jim. I specifically wonder how funding agencies will react to how much cheaper Zoom is. I think we spent $500 instead of $60,000, and yeah, the event was much worse. But was it 120 times worse? Does anyone want to chime in?
I mean, I can take a stab at this. I've been in certain discussions about exactly this question on certain organizations that organize conferences. I think there is a strong reluctance to return to 1 day and maybe even 2 day meetings, because are those really worth 120 times more? On the other hand, things that are week-long working meetings, it feels like people really still want those to come back and see the value in those kinds of meetings. But I do think that funding agencies are going to doom short meetings.
Are not going to do short meetings.
They will doom the short meetings. The week-long events will survive, but I think these 1 day meetings, which existed, or 2 day meetings, I think many of those will be permanently online.
Sorry, could you explain what is the AIMS format that I don't...
Jim, do you want to, yeah, I don't know.
it's a week-long format where you bring people together to work on particular problems. And I can also answer Steve's question. The AMS sectional meetings are more local meetings. They're meant to be by section, not national meetings. So that's a different category than national two-day meetings.
Does anyone want to participate in, as they said, that we're getting close to the end? Maybe Andrey can, if somebody wants.
Yeah. If someone wants to raise a hand, yeah. Lorenzo, you're muted. You're talking, but you're muted.
Sorry. I think that the question posed by Jim Fowler, I guess, is extremely good because it will force us to think what is a conference and which are the goals of a conference. I think that, again, it's time that we organize something. We need to know why, for whom, for what. And I think that this type of question for us to think about what is the goal of a meeting and to try to be much more objective. I think that many times we simply repeat the things, and maybe it's the moment that we need to think in a much more critical way about the way we proceed. I think that probably we need to think a little why the in-person 1 week conference are very important, and we will need to explain this to the audiences. It's like this, but we need to think about this.
Here, Sheldon. You're muted, Sheldon.
Unmute yourself. I think he's muted.
Dmitry also.
Okay, there it is. Okay, the format was completely different on the bottom, and so every time I do these Zooms, I see something different. And it's not so easy since I don't teach anymore and I don't run The first thing I want to say is I think that we are evolving. We had to, this is obvious what I'm going to say, but I want to emphasize it because I think this kind of panel meeting and this kind of discussion, which shows the ideas of the evolution of this new tool we have with Zoom, is ongoing and will go on. And this particular year, I think it's too early, for me personally, it's too early to try to go to any meeting because we still have I have the 2 Pfizer vaccines and the booster vaccine. I'm safe, maybe. We still have a number, even though things are going down, of many things related to COVID. And at least for me, this is too early for me to start going back to some kind of normal life as much as I would like to. In another year, another 6 months, the situation might dramatically change. That's one comment. Just in terms of, so I think Zooms in one way or another are very, very useful. It's a new tool that will develop and I don't think should disappear for many of the reasons that have been discussed already. I think this panel, this panel has been very useful to see the beginning of an evolution of the kind of, I don't think we'll get to a stable state, but the kind of differences that might be employed by this technique. And I would encourage you to do it again in 6 months or whatever the appropriate time is to discuss this, because you discuss it among yourselves, but having it spread out like this to a number of that was the main thing I wanted to say. I think this kind of joining of people with different ideas and different experiences, because I learned many things from different kinds of formats of meetings, from Bryna's talk and so on, from Carlos's talk. And so that's my main comment. I think it's a good idea to organize this, at enough of a gap, not necessarily monthly or anything like that, that we can sort of advertise and explore new techniques. Maybe 6 months or so, I don't know. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Sheldon, I totally agree with you. And maybe just my 2 extra pennies, which are trivial. Certainly, we shouldn't forget many years of successful experience of in-person seminars and collaboration and such. But of course, this pandemic is a very nasty thing, but it helped us to learn something new. We are changed, and new experience is also useful. So from now, nothing is going to be the same. We understand this, all of us, and we probably should learn how to combine new skills which we developed and past things which, of course, of great value. So maybe the world would become a little bit even better.
All right.
So yeah, one point is that, I mean, for me, when, I mean, of course, everybody probably heard about this website. I mean, we started as math seminars, and I think now it's a research seminars where many online seminars are listed. So when it started, it became a kind of archive thing for me. I mean, every morning when I wake up, I usually take a look at archive to see what is new. And also I was looking at these online seminars because it allows you to complement somehow archive with talks about the paper that you are interested in. So it's a very nice thing that, I mean, it was not possible before. So
you mean looking at the schedule of talks?
Exactly, look at the schedule. So I see an archive paper now, and then I see that the speaker is going to talk about exactly paper that I'm very interested in 2 days. And so it's really nice. And now I'm using this system to get information quicker, and it's certainly very useful. I mean, it's accelerating the way information is spreading, certainly. But as we already discussed it, of course, this format online is very tiring in some aspects, and so we should think how to make it close to perfection if it's possible. But certainly, yeah, I mean, I would like to notice that I mean, before archive, information was very difficult to spread. We had to print and then send to people by mail. So archive came out. I mean, I think it's 30 years of archive, more or less. And then we now use it to basically get up in the morning, take a coffee, take a look at the archive, and then go do our business. And I think now we have archive 2.0 or 1.5, I don't know, with this idea of mixing talks and yeah, so it's I agree with Sheldon. It's a great opportunity, and we should think more about how this tool is going to help us.
Well, as a matter of fact, publishing in referee journals means one thing is that the paper was refereed and so hopefully checked. Not always thoroughly enough, but still, when something is published on archive, you never know if anyone checked all proofs thoroughly. The other thing is that if something is published in Annals or JGT or such, of course it attracts attention. How can you look at so many papers coming on archive, right?
I want to read a comment by Boris. He said that we must also educate university administrations about the value of supporting faculty participation in meetings that are being run in person only, because many universities have cut or never had travel support, and this does not help mathematicians or the diversity of meeting participation. This is an issue. And well, I encourage you to read the comments on the chat because there are many and they are very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I'll stop recording now.